Hello, everyone, and welcome to Alien's Joy today on this beautiful Saturday here. I am glad you are watching today, and if you are watching the replay, thank you so much. Always glad to bring you some joy and some information. Today on Alien's Joy, in this episode, we're going to talk about burnout and what burnout really means and what burnout does to you and what the consequences are of those feelings and emotions that you might experience when you are talking about burnout. We're doing a little bit of talking about, the meaning of burnout. What is the definition of it? How can you assess it? How do you know that you experience those feelings in the workplace? I am Eliane Haan. I am a life coach and wellness coach, and I'm specialized in midlife and transformation coaching. And all these things together bring me to a field of helping people with anxiety, with burnout. Sometimes that leads to excessive stress, turns into anxiety, turns into depression. I help people through trauma and grief and big transformation in life, right? That might be an empty nester syndrome, the kids are gone, that might be finding your why and your purpose, that might have to do with overcoming loss and grief, overcoming PTSD symptoms, and more. So if you ever wanted to reach out to me, I'm easy to find. Find me on social media and my website, alienhaan.com. So every week we're talking in this show a little bit about how to overcome life, right? And how to battle the difficulties in life. And some of these difficulties that I can talk about from experience as well might have to do with symptoms of burnout. What are these symptoms of burnout? It is a state of chronic and physical and emotional exhaustion. Just chronic in the sense of you just feel after a while, you feel exhausted in the workplace. You are feeling sometimes a detachment from work, and you are feeling a sense of cynicism about work, right? It is not really a joyful thing anymore. You don't want to get up to go to work. You feel a lack of accomplishment. You feel ineffective in the workplace. And it has to do, it is a response. Burnout is really a response to to a continuous prolonged exposure to chronic stressors. So, and this all find place, particularly in the workplace. So when we talk about workplace burnout, it has to do with what you do, where you are at with your work. So it also can manifest in other areas of life. But when we talk about burnout, we usually talk about the workplace, the job that you do, the place that you have in society to contribute, to get up every day and to go to work. That has to do, that might ultimately, if you're not happy, lead to burnout status. So it's really important for me as a coach, for instance, working with people, clients, patients, to assess if it is indeed burnout that you're experiencing, so that you have symptoms of burnout, or is it stress or anxiety that has to do with everyday life as well? So if it's more than work, if it's relationship, if it's financial, if it is spiritual even, then, there's more going on, and that can just be a form of daily stressors, maybe even chronic stress that can lead to anxiety. If you're experiencing a lot of exhaustion and a lot of cynicism and detachment from work, then that is usually what can be classified as burnout. So there's a lack of accomplishment and a lack of enthusiasm for work. And it also has to do with things like, you might not feel maybe being supported, you might not feel heard or validated at the workplace. And these things are very important to understand. So how can we really address that? Why is this so important to address this burnout? It is important because if you are experiencing prolonged, for a long time, symptoms of burnout, that might definitely affect your physical health and definitely your mental health. So ultimately, burnout is associated with a range of physical and mental health issues. Let's say depression, right? Let's say anxiety, insomnia, you can't sleep. You might experience an onset of heart disease. You might experience immune or weakened immune functions. So it's very important to, in a certain time, in that period of time when you're starting to feel that you're having a lack of enthusiasm for work, that you're going to start to address that, because otherwise this might also cause some health problems, definitely physical problems. Because anything that we experience, I always say, in our minds, anything that we're holding on to, anything that is just really uh, uh, manifesting in your mind as negative emotions, negative feelings, that also will affect your physical health, right? It will definitely go into your body. So your quality of life, it's the second one, right? There is so much to say for the quality of life. And if there's an onset of burnout, or if there's a prolonged, um, there are prolonged symptoms of burnout, then it definitely has an impact on your overall quality of life. In the sense of, let's say an example, you are feeling constantly stressed out at work, you're feeling negative about work, you're not happy at the workplace anymore, you feel there's a lack of respect, you're not producing as much as you used to, you bring that home. And even if you have those feelings, and you already talk about it in the workplace, and everybody kind of talks about it, and it kind of starts affecting other people around you as well. In relationships at work, it also starts affecting your relationship at home, because you bring it home. You bring it home, you want to talk about it. In the beginning, you find maybe a lot of support, and after a while, it might come to a reaction of your spouse or your partner, in a sense of, yeah, just let's not talk about it anymore, I'll just do something about it, that kind of thing. And that will just definitely affect your relationship at home, and just overall, you start feeling that there's less enjoyment in life. And of course, overall, just affects productivity and affects performance on the workplace, right? First, you want to do it all, but you don't feel respected, or maybe not seen, or maybe not heard. Maybe there's no support system. Maybe you just get too much to do. Maybe you love everybody that gives you a lot to do, but it's just too much, and people just keep piling stuff on you. Then at some point you can't produce anymore, in that sense, right? It just definitely affects not only you, but also your organization. And what you see in an organization as an effect of that is that there's employee retention, right? So burnout is crucial for staff or management or organizations to address, because you want to keep employees, in a sense of, right, not having a turnover all the time. So for an organization, it's very important to address it, to see it, and to take it serious, and to say to employees and staff, what is going on? How can we help you? And how can we address these issues? And definitely even in training, definitely even in recruitment, finding out, right, how we can assess if people are strong enough for the job. So in an organization and in the culture of an organization, it's definitely important to address burnout symptoms. It can negatively affect the culture within the organization as well. There's more and more people getting overwhelmed and feeling that they have too much to do, and they can't address it, and the work pressure is too much, and it starts becoming very stressful, and it starts to lead to burnout. Then there's a lot of conflict amongst employees. There's a lot of there's a lot of absenteeism, that people that are not showing up anymore at work. Healthcare costs are increasing, because we need to pay for people to take days off and go to the doctor and stay at home. And there's a decline in morale, because others that are in that same work environment start noticing that, right? Or maybe even everybody starts talking about it, and there's a somewhat of an influence amongst each other, that if one says, well, this is not good, this is just not leadership, then everybody else steps up and says, yeah, you're actually right, we shouldn't, you know we shouldn't be able to get so much work. We shouldn't get so much work on our plate. This is not good. And then we got that going, right? So if you're thinking about the ethical consideration right there, where just you are looking, for instance, in providing healthcare or providing education, where burnout in these settings is huge. If this is the case, you don't address it, then that will definitely affect healthcare. That will definitely affect, good care for in our education system, right? And so in teaching, I mean, teachers, the burnout amongst them is huge because there is a lot of pressure. And in the medical staff, I mean, think COVID times and afterwards, lots of pressure. So for that reason, I wanted to address it. And I also addressed it in an 8-week course. I will address it in some webinars coming up. And I will even address the difference between burnout, between stress and anxiety. So there's all kind of different things going on. Overall, social and economic impact, a really broad, wide scale. If we are having a lot of burnout in society, then that has huge economic consequences. So reduced work for participation, increased healthcare cost, and decreased economic productivity. So it's very important to keep an eye on all these things at the same time. Why do I address that this time of the year? Because let's say, as an example, in the education system, right? We are just starting with a new class in September, and here comes, we're rolling around in this time of the fall and the winter time where there's a lot of things at the same time happen, right? You just start with a new class, and now here's Halloween, and there's Thanksgiving and Christmas. So you don't only have to address all these so-called wonderful things in the classroom, but also at home and also in your family. And also during the holidays, there's sometimes pain, there's sometimes grief, and it's all supposed to be in this fun, wonderful setting of the holidays, right? So there's a lot of anxiety around these times that leads in the workplace sometimes to a lot of burnout symptoms. We can take steps to manage that stress, to establish work-life balance, to seek support when needed, and that when coaching comes in a form of what I do and help people with those burnout systems. I help organizations implement policies and practices that will implement well-being, that will support well-being, that will create a supportive work environment, and how we can recognize those signs and take appropriate intervention. I will help organizations with that, to address that. So it's very important for not just the individuals that are working in that setting, but also for the businesses and organizations themselves. Very important. So there are a variety of very distinct things that we can find in burnout, in stress, and in anxiety that we can address. And there's some key differences, and some of the burnout differences can be seen as completely different as, for instance, stress symptoms, right? But today, let's just address some of these burnout causes. So typically, again, the cause, high levels of extensive workloads, overwhelmed responsibilities, excessive workload, overwhelmed by responsibilities, and not feeling the support and not feeling the implications of people listening to you and respecting what you do, right? That is what's causing it. So if we're going, for instance, to the symptoms, what do you bring home? Those are the symptoms, right? How do you start feeling that? Again, you start feeling that exhaustion. You feel that there's a sense of, yeah, I don't care anymore, being cynical about work, there's detachment, and you're definitely not producing as you used to. There's just definitely a lack of motivation. How can we find these symptoms? Well, when you feel a lack of motivation, you feel that you just don't want to do what it takes. That's very important. And there's just a focus point there, right? You're just so tired all the time. So when you are tired and exhausted, when you get up and you don't want to engage, that's one of the first signs where you can feel that you're going overboard there. Very important to know. And then, of course, like duration of burnout is gradual. Sometimes in the beginning, you think, I'm just tired due to other circumstances. Or maybe it will change when another supervisor steps up. Or maybe it will change if I bring it up in a meeting. Maybe it will change when I'm going to address it with my boss. And maybe it will change when I'm starting to take a vacation. I'm going to ask for some vacation time, and afterwards everything will be better. So in the beginning, we think it's pretty solvable, right? We can just attack it ourselves and say, well, it's just all these things together. I'm going to address it. I'm going to do something about it, and it will go away. Now, if this does not go away, it can just gradually slip into your life where you feel that it starts affecting everything around you. So it might be a short term of, hey, this is just not working, or it might be a longer term and you start feeling that over the time of a year or so. I experienced that myself over a long time of a year or so. I just really, in the end, just had to acknowledge that I was completely burned out with the job. Although I loved what I was doing, I couldn't do it in that setting anymore. It just became too much. There is just, of course, there's treatment. Of course, there's management, right? We have to, for instance, treatment. We have to take breaks. We have to set boundaries. Sometimes we have to say no. And how difficult is that, right? I can do separate shows on boundaries. We have to seek that social support. Sometimes it's just first other staff members and co-workers, other employees that we're seeking support from. And sometimes we're going straight to bosses and to people that are above us, and we're going to start to address that. It may require just a vacation. It might just require some rest and recoup time. So we just have these stress management techniques, right, that we might have to address there. So it's definitely possible to find some problem solving strategies because you want to stay there. You really want to do something about it. So it definitely takes some time to implement some treatment and strategies. And if that is not working, of course, then it just requires moving on. The impact, again, is really, really huge. It just affects your ability to perform effectively. And, again, it might just ultimately start to affect your personal life. So that's why we have to address all these symptoms of burnout and all these consequences. If we are really taking care of ourselves and if we really start recognizing symptoms of burnout, then we can definitely ask for help and do something about it. We can prevent a lot of things with help, for instance, of coaching, with help of other support systems. We can start addressing, do some assessment about our own personality. Maybe we're just not meant to be there. Maybe we were not meant to be in a setting of this proportion, right? Maybe I was never meant to be here and take on this workload. If I knew myself better, then I knew that maybe I was not meant to be in that work environment. In that case, as a coach, I'm going to lead people into some personality tests and find out if you're actually, as a client or as a patient, working with them, I'm trying to find out what we can do to take the next step forward and find something else. But first, we might want to do some personality tests to find out what kind of work we are really meant to, what kind of work setting we are really meant to be in. Right? Sometimes we have to address if we are people, if we are extrovert or introvert. Sometimes we have to find out if we're supposed to be problem solvers. Sometimes we have to find out if we're leaders or if we rather work in a setting where we get where we have somebody above us that tells us what to do, and we just like to follow directions. So in that sense, it's really important to find out what kind of people we are ourselves, what kind of personality traits we have. And that is really important, because then we can look at some goal setting and take some action moving forwards. So in this sense, I wanted to talk and give you an idea today about what can happen in the workplace when you're not happy, you're feeling a sense of being overwhelmed, not happy anymore. How can I help? I address this a lot, and like I said, please reach out if you want to know more. I have a lot of social media at the moment going on about burnout, especially this time of the year. So I try to help people in a personal setting, one-on-one coaching, virtual and in person, and also a lot of group coaching online. And there's a workshop formats, there are seminars and webinars. So if I can help you, please reach out. You can find me, elianhaan.com, and on my website, you can find all the little buttons to social media. You can just hit it right there and find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and so forth. I hope you are well. I hope this helped a little bit and gave you some information about recognizing some symptoms of what you're going through. Next week, I will do some comparison between burnout, stress, and anxiety. It might be just one, it might be all of them. If you don't feel good, please reach out. It's always a way to get through some things together. And that's what I do as a coach. Thank you for watching today. I'm going to leave it to this. Thank you for watching Elian's Joy. This was a very serious subject, but I want to bring you some joy. I want to tell you to reach out. I want to tell you there is help. And for that reason,